Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg's presidential campaign is heating up. The campaign will hit the ground running this week with ads talking about why the billionaire thinks he is the best candidate to go up against President Trump in next year's election. The billionaire media mogul was in Norfolk, Virginia yesterday for his first appearance as a candidate. Bloomberg stopped in at a coffee shop where he greeted voters and sat down with Nancy Guy, the delegate-elect that he supported in the Virginia race. Bloomberg says he will not be accepting private donations. They made a record-breaking $31 million ad buy ahead of the official announcement. So let's talk about the Bloomberg bid and race for the Democratic nomination with our guest host today, Eric Cantor. Also, Louisville, Kentucky's mayor, Greg Fischer. He is the co-chair of Michael Bloomberg's presidential campaign. And gentlemen, welcome. It's great to see you both. Mr. Mayor, why don't we talk about why you are supporting Michael Bloomberg, why you are chairing this for him?
Well, Mike's ready to go from day one. Never have we had a candidate for president that has proven his capability in starting a business as a guy that grew up in a middle-class family and grown into one of the world's great companies, then took on New York City for 12 years, elected 3 different times, and made this the greatest city in the world. And then over this past decade has spent his time trying to figure out how he can give his money away and helping causes all around America, all around the world. So he's ready to go from day one. He's proven that he can unify people, and that's really what the country needs right now, is for us all to get on the same page and realize that diversity is our strength, and let's work together. He can do that. He's
a pretty different candidate than the other 18 candidates running for the Democratic nomination. Were you waiting to see what he did with this? What were you thinking about the other Democrats that have been in the race to this point?
Well, I've been kind of sitting on the sidelines, but when Mike called and explained what he was thinking about doing, and I've just always admired his work as a fellow mayor, what he's done here. I'm a business guy as well. It just happens to be mayor. It's hard to build a great business like he has and really have excellence like he has, both in the business world and in running a city.
So I think he's one of the most accomplished, competent people. I constantly say it. However, there is an issue of how does he excite the base. You see it both in terms of the poll numbers unto themselves, the way he speaks. By the way, I know him, so I like him. I mean, that's not an issue. But to the larger public, that's a big lift.
Well, I think that's the key, right? If people get to know Mike Bloomberg and they see,
but most people are not going to get to know Mike Bloomberg on a one-to-one basis.
No, but you can see that through the media that he's going to run. If we get to know Bloomberg, he wins.
Mr. Mayor, I want to know this. I mean, listen, he's always been, as there's a general election play here, right? Kevin Sheehy was out yesterday saying that the general election is about 6 states, and it's about 31 congressional districts in those states, and that's how they're going to win. The problem is, how in the world, and again, with all due respect, I have a lot of respect for Mike Bloomberg. How in the world does he get through the primary and the Democratic side of things? He's way too wealthy. The base is way too woke. I cannot imagine how that works. How does he get through the primary?
This is the struggle that the Democrats are going through in the primary right now, right? What we need is a center-left candidate that can both win the primary and then win the general. So you can see in the primary right now, that's the tension that's taken place. So in comes Mike Bloomberg with a resume that is extraordinarily unique. This knock on him as being a billionaire, to me, doesn't make any sense. Here's a guy that grew up in a middle-class family. Everybody would like to do this, right?
Listen, you're talking to, I mean, I agree, but I'm just saying.
Over here. Right. What do you do with the rest of the Democratic base who's been supporting Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders?
Well, I think when they look, okay, what has Mike been doing with his foundation? Look at what he's been doing with climate, with gun safety, with population health, with women's reproduction.
Almost all billionaires are all giving away half. They all signed
for these causes.
They all signed
to Democrats.
I mean, for me, those aren't the right causes for me. But there are a lot of other billionaires that have signed the Giving Pledge that still get completely hammered, pilloried, called useless, called freeloaders, so it has nothing to do with giving the money away. They all give their money away.
No, there's a vast difference between a Giving Pledge and having Bloomberg Philanthropies that's worked.
Okay, there are other cities. There's other billionaires that have given away money that are still being typecast as nasty billionaires.
Totally different than Mike in terms of the depth.
Totally different than Mike. Really, he's the best philanthropist because of climate change.
If you were a mayor and saw how he's been working with mayors all over America on these issues. Well, he puts his money where his heart is, and that's what people need to look at. And then he follows it up with action.
You know what is very interesting about Mike Bloomberg's entry in the race? It does say something about what I see is a moribund list of candidates on the Democratic side, because obviously there was an assessment here, and I'm sure well polled and analyzed, that Bloomberg said, hey, there's not a national candidate here. There's not someone who can excite the Democratic base. They're just regional candidates. Even Joe Biden is something.
That's a sad commentary.
And it's assessment of how Bloomberg probably went through it. But let's say that Bloomberg does get the nomination. Let's forget what happens to that point. How do you think he runs against Trump? How do you think that matches up?
Well, it's about Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, Arizona, North Carolina. And that's what they're focused on. I'm sure the Trump campaign is as focused on. But I'll tell you one thing. Unlike the other Democrats, Mike Bloomberg comes to the race and says, hey, Trump is winning. You know, they've even recognized the fact that you got to get out of this bubble in these coastal cities and say, you know what, the heartland is for Donald Trump. And I'm not so sure that Mike Bloomberg sells in the heartland.
Let's get out of these.
Well, but the question to me is not just the heartland. I was telling Joe, I got in this discussion yesterday with a young woman who was just couldn't even conceive of the idea of someone who has $1 billion or more, in this case, of being the candidate. But
where do you hang out?
Hold on. that the idea of that kind of wealth unto itself was being argued to me as disqualified.
The New York Times. What am I saying?
Joe.
What am I saying? What am I saying? I know where you hang out. I know where you hang out.
But the issue, on the merits of this discussion, the question is, how does he get over that? How does he take somebody who has that view, to the extent they do? It's not a view that I share, but to the extent it's a view out there. How does he overcome that?
Well, and this is what campaigns are about, right? So he has the resources to tell his story.
Right.
I believe once his story is told, as a middle-class guy that's done really good, that's given his resources to help in all these Democratic causes. Most people don't know that. They think of Mike Bloomberg as this big business guy.
Right.
They don't understand him as a guy with a big heart that fights for great social causes.
Okay, so then the next argument becomes about stop and frisk. Right? Have you read any of the Charles Blow columns who say you can't apologize 3 days before you're running and think that anybody's going to give you credit for it? I'm just saying it's what
on the left. That's criticism.
That goes to the primary.
But that goes to the primary. That goes to the primary.
For the right is he jets off to Bermuda on a private jet.
But what do good leaders do?
With climate change, with armed guards.
Reflect on what works, what didn't work. Right. They apologize. They improve. Mike started the Young Men's Initiative, which was the premier initiative that really helped launch My Brother's Keepers with President Obama, that says, here's how we invest in young men and boys of color. Again, follow the money with him, see the heart, it worked.